It's Jay, and welcome into the Mvskoke Media Newsroom. I am multimedia producer Jason Salzman, along with media coordinator Jessica McBride, as we are joining you today to give you an update on some of the bigger stories that we are working on that are developing here out of the Mvskoke Media offices. And two of those would be some of the more talked about polarizing issues going on right now at Mvskoke Creek Nation. And we'll start off today with the issue of the Myon online reading program. A lot of people had different opinions on this or what was going to happen, and when it did happen, there were, of course, strong feelings on both sides. You have a very polarizing issue, as I said here, because a group of people say the deal as it is or as it was, probably not the best for the Mvskoke Creek Nation financially now. Efforts to bring down the amount, and those that say getting rid of it altogether would not be a good move for our Creek kids and for the kids in the surrounding areas that have benefited from this program. So we look now to where we're at, and we've put out several calls for documentation to support some of this and haven't received those things yet, but we are working on the stories. But Jessica, where does it bring us to now with the September 12th hearing that was recently?
So if you know anything about council, you know it goes through committee hearings before it goes through the full council when it comes to a vote. So at the September 12th Health, Education, and Welfare Committee meeting, there was a $1.8 million appropriation for the Myon program, and it failed to get a vote. So this effectively defunded the Myon program for this year. Now, on October 19th, we requested contracts on Myon to kind of do some research and let citizens know what's going on with the program. Now, we still haven't received that information, but we wanted to give citizens an update to let them know where exactly it is. Now, at a HUE committee session on November 7th, there was another appropriation up for Myon for about half the original requested amount, and that also failed.
Yeah, and that was just recently, the most recent HUE committee meeting that came from. I want to point out to you the reason, folks at home, the reason that we have requested the contracts is because contractual concerns were sort of at the heart of it not receiving a second in the previous meeting there on September the 12th. So you hear contractual concerns, you definitely want to take a look at the contracts, and from what we've gathered, haven't been able to get those yet. We certainly have those requests. They're all out there, and so Mvskoke Media on October 19th requested those contracts for 2013, 14, 15, and 16 from the Attorney General's office and the Office of the Controller, and we have not received a reply as of press time. So hopefully we get those soon. We'll be able to look through them, go through them, maybe with the Controller's office. They have been very generous with their time and their analyses when we are getting things with the Controller's office and getting some things cleared up. So there's our hope that we will be able to do something maybe like that in that setting. So that's a big issue. And as you said, in the most recent HUE committee meeting, Greg Anderson rose and spoke to the council, mentioned that some of the numbers that were out there with Myon, such as the fact that the Creek Nation paid up front for over 85,000 users, some odd 85 plus thousand users, and he had met with the Myon president twice, and the president basically relayed to him that only 16,000 had accessed the program for the Mvskoke Creek Nation in their business dealings with Myon. So you see a large discrepancy of actual users to users paid for up front. Now that's, as I said, Mvskoke Creek Nation saying, here's the check for this many users without knowing actually how many are going to. That was some, excuse me, that was some of the concerns from Greg Anderson that he outlined to the council. And looking through some of those numbers, he believes that we could we wouldn't necessarily have to completely cut ties with Myon, but maybe pull the number back. That's what he did. He brought forth the $400-something thousand, but it failed as well. So now it'll be a wait-and-see game with where they go from here.
Right, and we don't know what this means exactly for the literacy program. As far as our understanding is right now, the program will be defunded because this funding hasn't passed. If you are interested in hearing those committee sessions to find out more or hear exactly what tribal officials have said, you can actually hear those recordings on the National Council's website. Their website is www.mcnnc.com. mvskoke.com, and that's like Muskogee Creek Nation National Council.
Yep, and you can look on there, archived meetings, listen. I believe they have a full listing of the 2015 meetings as well. So lots of information in there, lots of audio. It's a great audio system. You can really hear like you're sitting right there for the meetings. And if you want to go back and hear the comments that I referenced from Greg Anderson, the Secretary of Education and Training, or some of the council members that had questions for him and the council members, and in the way that they voted, you don't necessarily have to take it from us. You can go and hear right from the source there if you want to listen to the meeting. So you can do that, as she said, at mcnnc.com under the headings of the archived meetings. Our second big issue that we are working on and that we are awaiting information back, word back, statement back, anything from the tribe is having to deal with the Fair Labor Standards Act, or FLSA. Now, folks, what this means is, in 1938, the FLSA was passed and introduced the 40-hour work week, a national minimum wage, guaranteed time and a half overtime in certain jobs, and what it did was prohibit employment of minors and child labor. So FLSA, a fairly historic labor relations act passed, as we said there, in 1938. Why is it relevant to us? Well, on May 18th of this year, the Department of Labor published its final rule updating the overtime regulations with an effective date of December 1st, 2016. If you have a calendar right now, if you are up to speed on what we're doing and what's going on in this earth, December 1st is coming up, and it's fast approaching. So we really need the information on this. We put out information on this several months ago, Jessica, and you can get into that, but where are we at as far as what our coverage is and what we're trying to find out about what federal laws as it pertains to wage, working, place of employment, how it's going to affect the Creek Nation.
So on May 18th, the Department of Labor put out a statement, as Jason said, and we contacted Public Relations on that same day to find out how the regulations would affect the Creek Nation and what we were doing concerning it. We got a response on June 2nd from the acting controller at the time, Kathy Guthrie, and I'll actually read her statement. It says, the MCN at this time are in negotiations on how the MCN will be affected by President Obama's legislation on overtime regulations. This federal legislation will not be effective until December 1st, allowing the MCN to prepare and contact other tribes to procure a system that best works for us. Meetings have been scheduled June 14th to discuss with other tribes on how to best handle these new overtime terms and brainstorm on these matters. Now, I know a lot of citizens are wondering, what does this do? Yeah. Now, this overtime regulation affects how overtime is paid, how it affects employees. Yeah. Currently, if you make less than $455 per week, then your employer is required to pay you actual payment in overtime, write you a check at time and a half for however many hours you've worked over the 40-hour work week. Now, this changes that amount. If you make under $913 a week, then your employer has to pay you overtime in the form of a check for the hours you've worked over 40.
And as a result, the employees that did not receive overtime pay will now be required by federal law to be paid time and a half overtime.
Right, and it'll be an actual payment. And currently, if you're a tribal employee, you know that you're paid in comp time or flex time.
Right.
And so if you work over that amount of work week, you get flex time, you get to take off that time that you've worked. So some employees are going to be affected by this, and so we're waiting on a statement from the nation to find out how we're dealing with this, how this law is going to affect the tribe.
Right, because as you can imagine, Jessica, when we're looking at something like this, take for instance, we're talking about a tribe-wide predicament with saying each budget from each department needs to go back in and say, we have to make room, budgetary income room, to pay the kind of overtime that we're going to have to pay if there's not a plan and this does go into effect. And as I said, time is ticking, December 1st. And we saw from the words from Kathy Guthrie when she issued the statement, there is a plan tribes are preparing to contact other tribes, that is said right here in black and white. We know then either that's not a true statement or the tribes are, in fact, they have been talking with other tribes to try to procure what best works. We're just waiting to hear that as the media. So we're coming down to 0 hour here on this deadline.
Right.
And that's why we were working so hard to get something out there.
And I think it's important to note too, this isn't a deadline for tell us your plan on how you will meet this regulation. This is, you need to have the regulations in place. Like Jason said, it sounds like by Kathy Guthrie's statement that we've reached out to other tribes to find out how they're going to handle it. We ourselves have reached out to some other tribes and haven't received a comment back as of yet to find out how they're going to deal with the regulation. However, on November 1st, the Native American Finance Officers Association issued a statement, and it recommended that tribal employers ensure compliance with the new overtime rule and not delay preparation. So they're stating you need to be prepared and budget for these overtime regulations. We don't know if the proper amount has been budgeted in all departments to help pay the overtime. There are employees that would meet the qualifications before this rule was passed that would receive overtime pay. So we're looking into that and awaiting a statement from the Creek Nation.
And some folks out there may hear what we're talking about in the FLSA nationwide, as we said, Standards Act, but a lot of people will go, well, we're a sovereign tribal nation. We're not under that umbrella to where we have to go by anybody's deadline or anything like that. We fall under this federal regulation, this federal guideline here. So we most certainly do. We can't claim a sovereign exemption from something like this. This is federal workplace guidelines, and it's something that obviously we've looked at on our side, but also, as we can say from the comments and from what we've gathered so far, it's not only been looked at from us, but it's been looked at from tribal administration, not just from here at Creek Nation, but certainly as we see other tribes working on a plan as well. So we'll have all of that continuing to monitor as we get the news, and you will get it as soon as we do. We wait for something back whenever we request, and you should know out there, folks, whenever we get something, it goes to press, it comes up on the site just as fast as we can get it up there. When we get it, you'll get it. So
we've requested from Public Relations an interview with Chief Floyd as well as our Human Resources Department to find out how this is going to affect us and how, if we're going to need to change the budget, what exactly is going to happen from here on out. And as soon as we have that, then we'll go on with that.
Right. Lots of information out there to gather, lots of things to talk about. And as we said, sorry to take up so much of your time, but we have a lot of things that we want you to know that we are diligently working on around the clock over here to get this information out. We feel it's important to you. We feel it's important to be able to tell all sides of each of these and from every angle. So that takes a lot of research on our part, but it also takes a lot of cooperation. And as we said, we're just waiting on those things that we have requested. Another big story, or really issue that we've followed here lately, is the continuing Floyd Jones, the former community development director here at Mvskoke Creek Nation, still has not been brought in on the charges of embezzlement of the nation's funds, also using tribal funds for campaign purposes. Everybody innocent till proven guilty. We want to stress that, but at the same time, at some point, and I mentioned this not too long ago, you worry about the welfare of Mr. Jones himself. Lots of people, wondering his whereabouts, especially the Light Horse Police. So, still out there.
We've got a story up on MvskokeMedia.com, and so that's got all the details of why he's wanted and why Light Horse is searching for him. If you do see him or you know where he's at, Light Horse has asked you to contact him or contact them to let them know. That phone number can be found on the Creek Nation website, and you can call them and let them know what exactly you know. But as Light Horse has said, and as they said in the story, they don't know whether he's innocent or guilty. The Attorney General is bringing charges on him, and so it would be nice to get him in so that they can go through the court process and determine that.
Yeah, and Light Horse Police lets everybody out there know that this doesn't have to be, you can be an anonymous tip. I think that they will take anyone with information regarding just this, hopefully all of this works out safely, and that we can get this matter resolved, and the Light Horse can pursue what they believe to be some charges against the Mvskoke Creek Nation as a whole and its funds. So we'll have more on that on the website, on all of our outlets as it continues to develop, as well as these other stories. Keep an eye on what we have coming out regarding MyOn, the online reading program. Also keep an eye on what we have out on the FLSA, Fair and Labor Standards Act developments. And so we'll have to look at those. As we said, as we get things in, as we get the statements, the interviews, you will have them right here as we book them here at Mvskoke Media. And we want to thank you for staying with us. Thank you, Jessica, as always, for being with me here in the newsroom and clearing a lot of these issues up right here on MvskokeMedia.com. Stay with us, as always, for all things Mvskoke Creek Nation.